Styled for greatness, the shop that built her. Zora could style a head of hair in her sleep, but that wasn't what she was trying to be known for. She wasn't just another stylist. She was trying to change the entire game. The curling iron in her hand pressed smoothly through the last section of hair, leaving the silk press laid to perfection. The client's mouth fell open as she stared in the mirror. "Phew, girl, you laid me down," she said, twisting her head side to side, watching the sleekness catch the light. "This my real hair? Or a wig?" Zora smirked, turning the chair slightly. "All you, baby." The woman ran her fingers through the strands, eyes wide. "Oh, I'm telling everybody about you. What's your IG again?" Zora grabbed a card from her station and handed it over. "At Crowned by Zora," she said. "I post my work on there all the time." The woman nodded, pulling out her phone. "Oh, you got a TikTok too? Sis, why you ain't famous yet?" Zora laughed lightly, but the words hit different. Why wasn't she? She knew she was good at what she did. She wasn't just styling hair, she was perfecting it, learning the science behind it, figuring out how to create products that would actually nourish and protect black hair instead of just masking damage. But the women in the shop? They didn't see that as real work. She glanced over her shoulder. Rachel, Cheryl, and Claire were all posted up near the dryers, talking loud, laughing even louder, like they did every day. Rachel, with her soft, honey-colored curls, rocked a messy bun and hoop earrings, big enough to double as bangles. She was the loudest and the boldest, never hesitating to call somebody out or check a bad lace install with the swiftness. Cheryl, her locks pulled into an elegant updo, sat with her arms crossed, giving her usual skeptical expression. She was the motherly one, the protector, but also the hardest to impress. And Claire, the oldest, sat with her arms crossed, her silver-streaked afro perfectly shaped, her deep brown skin glowing. She didn't say much, but when she did, you listened. Zora looked at them and knew exactly what they were about to say. "You and that damn TikTok." Right on cue, Rachel spoke up. "Girl, you about to give your client a seizure flipping that phone around." Zora rolled her eyes, grabbing her spray bottle and spritzing the air. "Let me be great." Rachel sucked her teeth. "You and that social media mess. You know how many people out here got a TikTok? Millions. You think somebody gonna choose you over them?" Zora turned back to the mirror, fluffing the client's curls. "That's the difference between me and them," she said simply. "I'm not trying to be chosen. I'm building something." The shop that never changed. The shop smelled like coconut oil, burnt hair, and shea butter, all the things that made a black salon feel like home. Even though they had modern chairs, new dryers, a fancy point-of-sale system Zora helped install, the shop itself still felt like stepping into the 90s. The yellowed posters on the walls, showcasing outdated jerry curls and asymmetrical bobs. The faint R&B playing from a Bluetooth speaker on the counter, mixing with the sound of clippers buzzing from the barber's side. And most of all, the OGs. Their stories, their presence, their way of doing things, the way things had always been done. And that was the problem. Zora loved this place, but she also wanted more than what the shop had to offer. She wasn't just learning to do hair. She was learning how to take care of it, how to change the game for Black women who had spent too much time fixing what the world had told them was wrong with them. And nobody respected that. Terrell walks in. The bell above the door jingled, and a few heads turned as Terrell walked in, pulling his locks into a loose ponytail. Zora peeked up from her client, her eyes lingering for half a second too long. Brown skin, full lips, a sharp jawline covered in a full goatee. And that nose, bold, strong, like it was meant to sit on royalty. fine, but in an effortless way, like he wasn't trying. Zora shook her head, turning back to her work. She and Terrell, they weren't a thing. They just had too many conversations that felt like more than conversations. Terrell caught her looking, smirked. You staring kinda hard, Z. She exhaled, keeping her expression neutral. You wish. He chuckled, heading to his chair on the barber's side of the shop. Dreams too big for the room. When the last client left for the night, Zora gathered her things, still thinking about Rachel's words earlier. She wasn't wrong. There were millions of girls trying to make it online, but none of them were Zora. She pulled out her notebook, flipping through her research, her formulas, her ingredient lists, her goals. She wasn't just making content, she was making a movement. She just had to figure out how to make them see it. The first big opportunity and the OG's resistance. Zora was in the back room mixing a new leave-in formula when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She frowned but answered anyway. Hello? Hi, is this Zora Reynolds? Yes, this is she. This is Jada Green from Crowned Beauty. I've been following your work for a while, and I love what you're doing with natural hair care. We'd love to feature you as a guest stylist for an upcoming event to promote your products. Zora sat up straight. Crowned Beauty? The Crowned Beauty? They had millions of followers, celebrity endorsements, their products in Target. Her heart hammered. Wait, like, for real? Jada laughed. For real, we're featuring up-and-coming black hair entrepreneurs, and we think you'd be perfect. You'd be doing a live demo, showcasing your products and techniques. Do you have a salon space where we could host the shoot? Zora blinked, her brain moving a mile a minute. Did she? The shop. Her stomach tightened. This was huge, bigger than huge. If she pulled this off, it could change everything. The OGs react. Hell no. Zora hadn't even finished explaining before Rachel shut it down. What do you mean, hell no? Zora said, crossing her arms. Rachel sucked her teeth. You want to use this shop for a photo shoot? For some social media event? It's not just social media, Zora said, exasperated. It's Crowned Beauty. They want me to do a live demo with my products, and it would bring a ton of eyes to the shop, too. Cheryl leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. And what do we get out of this? Zora hesitated. Exactly, Rachel said. We built this place with real work, sweat, long hours, late nights. And you just walk in here, do a few styles, post on TikTok, and think you can skip the line? Zora's jaw clenched. I'm not skipping anything. I'm building something different. Claire finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. Zora, baby, you know we love you, but this ain't how things work. If you want to use this shop, you're going to have to pay for that space like anybody else would. Zora stared at them. Y'all are serious? Rachel nodded. Dead serious. Zora exhaled, trying to stay calm. How much? Rachel gave her a slow, deliberate smile. 500. Zora's eyes widened. $500? For one day? Cheryl shrugged. You want to play in the big leagues? You gotta pay big league prices. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't about the money. It was about principle. They were making her prove herself because they had to struggle, so she had to struggle too. She could argue, beg, but she wouldn't. Instead, she nodded once. Aight. Then she turned and walked out. Zora sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles ached. They really weren't going to help her. The one place she thought she could count on had made it impossible. A knock on her window startled her. She turned and saw Terrell standing there, hands in his pockets, waiting. She exhaled, unlocking the door. He slid into the passenger seat, pulling the door shut behind him. For a second, he didn't say anything. Just let her breathe. Then, finally, "You got any other options?" Zora scoffed, shaking her head. "Not really." "You sure? I know you know other stylists." She opened her mouth to say yes, but then stopped. Jordan. She worked at Texture's salon across town. Maybe her boss would be down to help. Zora blinked, sitting back. Why hadn't she thought of that? Terrell watched the realization cross her face. He smirked a little. "That's what I thought." She exhaled, pulling out her phone. "You trying to be my manager or something?" "Nah," he said, stretching his legs out in front of him. "Just trying to make sure you don't sit out here mad all night instead of figuring it out." Zora cut her eyes at him, but the frustration in her chest had already started to ease up. She texted Jordan, her fingers moving fast. A second later, her phone buzzed. "Jordan, between I'll ask her now, she loves supporting young stylists." Zora exhaled, hope creeping back in. Terrell nodded, satisfied. "There it is." He opened the car door and hopped out. Before she could even thank him, he was already heading back into the shop. Terrell headed straight for his station, greeting his next client with a nod before draping the cape around his shoulders. Across the room, Rachel, Cheryl, and Claire were still talking, and he already knew what the conversation was about. "That girl's so damn stubborn," Rachel muttered, shaking her head. "She gets it honest," Cheryl said, reaching for her coffee. "She want to be great, and that's fine, but she thinks she can just skip the hard part." "Mm-hmm," Rachel said, twisting her earrings. "Social media got these youngins thinking they don't gotta struggle, that they can just pop online, post a few videos, and get rich overnight." "Meanwhile," Cheryl added, "we had to grind, work our way up, take years before we was even trusted to touch a client's head." Rachel sucked her teeth. "Exactly. And now she want to come in here and act like she put in the work?" "She is working," Claire murmured, barely above a whisper. Rachel paused, her face twitching. She glanced at Claire, then shook her head. "I ain't say she wasn't working, but she don't got no patience. You can't skip steps." Cheryl exhaled. "Exactly. She gotta struggle like we did. That's the only way you get great." Terrell had been listening the whole time, lining up his client's hair in easy, smooth strokes. He didn't say nothing at first. He knew better than to get into it with the OGs. But he also knew they were wrong. Rachel must have noticed him listening because she cut her eyes at him. "What you looking at, youngster?" she asked. "You got something to say, or you just gon' sit there being nosy?" Terrell smirked, not taking the bait. "I ain't say nothing," he said coolly. Rachel folded her arms. "Mm-hmm. I bet you agree with her, though, huh? Think she's some little hair care genius? Think we all just hating on her?" Terrell dusted off his client's neckline before finally responding. "I don't think it's about skipping a line," he said, adjusting the clippers. "I think it's about doing things differently." Rachel sucked her teeth. She's trying to figure it out her way, just like we all are." The OGs didn't say anything at first. Then Claire, still rocking slowly in her chair, spoke. "Everybody gotta work hard," she said. Terrell nodded. "Yeah." Then he smiled a little, barely enough to notice. "And she is." Rachel twisted her lips like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just looked down at her phone, scrolling, and Terrell went back to cutting hair, like he never said nothing at all. The owner of Texture's salon, a woman named Miss Denise, didn't just let Zora borrow the shop. She let her do it for free. "I love seeing young black women making moves," Miss Denise said, smiling. "All I ask is that you tag the shop on your social media." Zora felt her throat tighten. This was what support looked like. She texted Jada from Crowned Beauty back immediately. Zora, we're set. I got the space. The Crowned Beauty shoot was a dream. Lights, cameras, stylists watching in awe as she explained her process, her formulas, her vision. She styled a model's hair live, demonstrating her all-natural leave-in conditioner. By the end of the shoot, her social media had blown up. Brands were sliding into her DMS. Women were asking where they could buy her products. Her following had nearly doubled overnight. And Miss Denise's shop, it got flooded with new clients. OGs back at the shop. Rachel was scrolling through her phone when she saw it. The shoot, the products, the way the comments were eating it up. She ate that up. Her products look bomb. Finally, somebody making hair care for us. By us. Cheryl raised an eyebrow. Something wrong? Rachel set her phone down, irritated. I ain't say nothing was wrong. Claire, rocking slowly in her chair, gave Rachel a knowing look. Jealousy don't look good on you. Rachel scoffed, but she couldn't shake the twist in her stomach. Because Zora did what they told her she couldn't do. The next day, Zora walked into the shop like nothing had happened. She wasn't acting different, but she felt different. Lighter, focused. She knew they had seen the event, the success, the way her name was buzzing online. But she wasn't about to walk in here bragging or seeking validation. Rachel was already scrolling on her phone, sitting at her station when Zora passed by. So, that little event went well, huh? Zora shrugged, setting her bag down at her station. Yeah, it was cool. Cheryl smirked. We saw it. Claire didn't say anything, just rocked slowly in her chair, her silver-streaked afro still perfectly fluffed. She was always watching, always listening. Rachel exhaled dramatically, tossing her phone onto her counter. Ain't like you used our shop, though. Zora turned, lifting an eyebrow. There it was. That's true, she said evenly. I didn't. Rachel leaned back, crossing her arms. And that's what's funny to me. You brought all that foot traffic, all that attention, to another shop. Ain't do nothing for the shop you actually work at. Zora tilted her head, then nodded. I get that. She wasn't defensive, wasn't rolling her eyes, wasn't being smart, just calm, honest. But I didn't have $500 to rent this shop. Rachel sat up a little. So I called my homegirl, Jordan. She asked her boss, and her boss, Miss Denise, was happy to support me. She said she loves seeing young black stylists making moves. She let me use the space for free. All she asked was that I tag her shop on social media, which I did, and that was the result. Zora gestured toward Rachel's phone. Rachel glanced at Cheryl, then Claire. Cheryl didn't say nothing, but Claire gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Rachel cleared her throat. So she let you use her shop for free? Zora nodded. Yeah. Rachel sucked her teeth. Zora leaned against her station. Social media works, Rachel. I know y'all don't see it that way, but I'm building my business on there. It's another way, not the only way, but a way. Rachel opened her mouth, then closed it. Because Zora wasn't wrong. That woman let her use the shop for free just for the exposure, and now the place was booming. Rachel looked at her phone again, scrolling through the comments on Zora's event post. People were asking for product links, trying to book with her, talking about how real she was for putting them on to healthy hair. Rachel exhaled, leaning forward on the counter, tapping her nails against the wood. Humph, she said again, softer this time. She didn't say anything else. And just like that, the first shift happened. They weren't on board, not yet, but they were watching. And they were finally taking her seriously. Zora sat cross-legged on her bed, notebook open, phone buzzing with notifications. Ever since the Crowned Beauty event, the DMS had been non-stop. Where can I get your products? Do you do consultations? Can I book an appointment? The buzz was thrilling, but also overwhelming. She had been grinding for this exact moment, people paying attention, actually wanting what she had to offer. But she wasn't set up for it. She didn't have a shop of her own where she could just bring people in. She didn't have a full website yet, just a basic one with product listings. She didn't even have a full launch strategy. I need to do something, something bigger. Then it hit her. A pop-up shop, a space where people could buy products in person, watch live demonstrations, get educated about healthy black hair. The best way to sell a product is to let people experience it. And if she could pull this off, it wouldn't just be about selling products. It would be about proving that she belonged here. She grabbed her phone, pulled up her messages, and texted Jordan. Jordan, girl, yes, a pop-up shop is perfect for you. Zora, I just don't know where to start. Jordan, I got you. Let's meet up and make a plan. Later that afternoon, Zora and Jordan sat at a small cafe, iced coffees in hand, laptops open. Jordan was a beast at organizing events. She had helped put together hair shows and stylist expos before. You need three things first, Jordan said, pulling up a document: a venue, a budget, and a timeline. Zora nodded. I want to use the shop. It's where I learned everything. That's where this should happen. Jordan raised an eyebrow. You think they'll let you? Zora's stomach twisted. I don't know, she admitted, talking to the OGs. The next day, Zora stood in front of Rachel, Cheryl, and Claire, hands clasped. I want to host a pop-up event, she said, a space for Black women to learn about hair care, try my products, and get real education on how to take care of their hair. And I want to do it here. Rachel sat back. Oh? Now you want to showcase the shop? Zora exhaled. I always wanted to. This place made me, and I think this could be a way to highlight both old and new hair care techniques. I was thinking of doing a mentorship feature, a way for OG stylists like y'all to teach traditional techniques and newer stylists to introduce modern ones. Silence. Rachel twisted her earrings. Cheryl sipped her coffee. Claire rocked slowly in her chair. Finally, Rachel exhaled dramatically. That's cute, but no thanks. Zora blinked. No? Rachel leaned forward on the counter. Nah, you keep trying to rearrange how this business works, like you just discovered it. But we've been here. We know how it's done. We don't need a pop-up to teach people how to do hair. Zora clenched her jaw. That's not the point. We ain't interested, Cheryl added. Zora stared at them. She had expected resistance, but outright dismissal. Then Claire spoke up. I'll do it, she said simply. Rachel turned, frowning. What? I'll do it, Claire repeated. I like the idea. It's time we evolve. Zora's stomach unclenched a little. Then Cheryl sighed. I'll do it too. Rachel scoffed. Oh, so y'all just gonna sign up like that? Cheryl shrugged. Why not? If two of us want to do it, then she can use the shop. Rachel looked between them, then exhaled. Leave me out of it. Zora should have been thrilled that she got two of them to agree, and she was, but Rachel's rejection stung. Still, she nodded. Okay. And just like that, it was set. She had the shop. Now she just had to pull everything else together. That evening, Zora sat on her couch with a notebook, scribbling like mad. Vendors. She needed someone to provide light refreshments. Hair models. She'd need at least 3. Promo. She needed to push this event hard on social media. Her phone buzzed. Terrell, you still working? Zora. What else would I be doing? Terrell. Come outside. Zora frowned, but grabbed her hoodie and stepped out of her apartment. Terrell was leaning against his car, a smoothie in one hand. He held the other one out to her. Mango ginger, for focus. Zora smirked, taking it. You just make this stuff up as you go? Nah. He took a sip of his. I just pay attention. She looked at him then, really looked at him. She had never thought about him that way. But now, she wasn't so sure. A date? Or just hanging out? Instead of rushing back to planning, she let Terrell take her out for a drive. They ended up at a late-night taco stand, sitting in his car, eating straight from the foil. You really pulling this off? He said between bites. I hope so. Terrell shook his head. Nah, you are. Zora let the words settle. For the first time in a while, she believed them. Zora was at the shop early, checking product displays and organizing the mentorship stations. Cheryl and Claire were already there, adjusting styling chairs and making sure everything was in place. Then the front door swung open. Rachel walked in, her expression neutral, but her presence heavy. Zora turned, keeping her face neutral. She had expected this. Claire glanced at Cheryl, smirking slightly but saying nothing. Rachel strolled in, her hands in her pockets, eyes scanning the setup. She muttered. Y'all really went all in on this, huh? Claire chuckled. We did, and so did Zora. She's been working her ass off. Rachel sucked her teeth. I still don't see the point. Claire raised an eyebrow. Well, we do, and so does half the city. You see how many RSVPs she got? Rachel wasn't going to admit she had already checked. She crossed her arms. You need me here, or you gonna mess this up? Zora exhaled slowly, then shook her head. I'm not interested in anybody being here because they feel like they have to. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Zora met her gaze, steady. I only want people here who actually want to be here. Rachel shifted on her feet. I never said I didn't want to be a part, she muttered. She sighed, shaking her head. I just needed time. Cheryl and Claire exchanged glances, but stayed quiet. Rachel finally exhaled sharply. Damn, girl, do you always have to be so direct? Zora shrugged. Always. Rachel rolled her eyes but muttered, All right. Where do you need me? Zora smiled, just slightly. Let's get to work. The event, the city shows up. By noon, the salon was packed. Women were lined up for live demos. Product shelves were clearing fast. Young stylists were learning classic techniques from the OGs. The OGs were trying out new techniques from the younger stylists. People were live streaming from inside the shop, tagging Zora and the salon. Her social media was blowing up in real time. She had notifications flying in, people posting Instagram stories, asking where they could buy her products. Her website orders doubled within hours. A well-known beauty influencer went live from the event, hyping up her products. Local bloggers and stylists were tagging the shop, creating major buzz. Zora was too busy working to fully process it, but she felt it. This wasn't just a good event. This was a moment. Rachel had finally settled into her groove, despite herself. At one station, a young stylist was watching Cheryl do a finger wave. You make that look so easy, she said, watching in awe. Cheryl chuckled. That's 'cause I've been doing it since before you was born. The young stylist smiled. Can you show me again? I want to get it right. Rachel, who had been hovering nearby, raised an eyebrow. You actually want to learn finger waves? She asked. The girl nodded. Yeah, I see a lot of girls bringing them back. It's classic. Rachel smirked. A few feet away, Claire was watching a younger stylist teach lace install techniques. So, you mean to tell me, Claire said, watching closely, y'all really just melt these down with mousse and a little spritz? The younger stylist nodded. Yep, no glue needed. Claire scoffed, but there was a gleam of curiosity in her eyes. You gon' have to run that back one more time. The exchange of knowledge was happening naturally, and Rachel, despite her best efforts to act unimpressed, was watching it happen. Later that night, Zora sat with Rachel, Cheryl, and Claire, counting up earnings. She had made 4.5 times her investment back. She had more orders than she could fulfill in a single week. The salon had seen a huge increase in traffic, and new clients were already asking about coming back. Rachel looked at the numbers and shook her head. Damn, you really pulled this off. Zora grinned. We pulled this off? Rachel scoffed. Mm-hmm. Cheryl chuckled. So, what's next for you? Zora hesitated. She had thought about moving on, getting her own space, expanding. But now, she looked around the shop, at the people who had taught her everything. She wasn't ready to leave just yet. I think I want to stay, she said. Expand my brand from here. Maybe set up a section to sell my products in-house. Claire nodded approvingly. That's a good move. Rachel tapped her nails against the counter. We'd have to figure out a percentage cut. Zora nodded. That's fair. But Rachel wasn't done. And we'd also need to talk about your cut of the new business coming in, she said. Zora blinked. Huh? Rachel smirked. You think we ain't noticed? We got more new clients today than we had all month. People came for your products, but they stayed for the shop. We'd be stupid not to make sure you get a percentage of that. You're not just some kid selling product anymore. You're bringing in business. Zora sat back. Damn, they weren't just tolerating her success anymore. They respected her. She smiled. Let's talk numbers then.
Rachel smirked. Now you talking my language. Later that night, Zora locked up the shop, turning off the last light. As she stepped outside, Terrell was leaning against his car, waiting. She walked over, arms crossed. You just loitering outside my job now? He smirked. I'm just trying to see what the future CEO is doing next. Zora tilted her head. You still want to be around to see that? Terrell looked her dead in the eyes. Yeah. Zora smiled. Then let's see where this goes.